Welcome to my Asshole Podcast. Let's get into it. Welcome to my Asshole Podcast. It is a beautiful Thursday episode for you guys. My goodness. As you have read the title, and hopefully in the Tuesday episode, as well as the post that I've made recently, we are changing things up. So what we got going on for you guys today is we're going to be doing a new book. Why are we doing a new book? We haven't finished Lights Out, you say. Well, the reason we're doing a new book is just because Lights Out has not been able to be uploaded on YouTube. That is a bummer. That does suck. I am upset that it's not able to be uploaded onto YouTube. That really sucks. So I decided, let's go ahead and change things up. Let's change gears, do another book for the Thursday episode, so that way you guys on YouTube will get an episode. We will still be continuing Lights Out. Lights Out will actually be on our Sunday episodes, all right? So Sunday episodes are going to change up a little bit. Usually Sunday episodes, we have our thread and then we go ahead and do scenarios. Well, until Lights Out is done, we are going to go ahead and change that up. These Sunday episodes, though, will only be available on Spotify, though. They will not be available here on YouTube. They will only be available on Spotify. Just so that way you guys know, you guys are all caught up. Lights Out will still be coming out. I'll keep the YouTube link playlist down in the description and on the channel, stuff like that. That'll cover maybe, I think, like the first 5 episodes. But if you want to listen to the rest of the book, you'll have to do it on Spotify, which there is a Spotify link down in the description. So you can go listen to the rest of the book there. All right? So that way that is out of, we're all good with that. Just wanted to let you guys know that. We're going to get into today's thread. We're also going to be doing King of Wrath today. I'm excited. A book I've been wanting to go over. So I'm excited. Hopefully you guys are too. Without further ado, let's get right on into our thread for today. All right. Okay. So our thread is, what is a NSFW experience that you are not proud of? All right. So let's see. When I was in 4th grade, I went to Ireland on vacation to visit my grandparents. I grew up in the Boston area, so I wasn't really very well versed in how farms work. But my grandparents owned a farm in County Mayo, Ireland. Anyway, one day I was playing hide and seek with some kids in my grandparents' neighborhood, and I found this giant mound of earth behind the barn. It seemed that a kid could fit himself between the mound and the side of the barn and concealed very well. So I started to climb the mound. When I got to the very top, the crust broke and I began to sink. Unfortunately, I took a bit too long to realize what was happening. But before I knew it, I was stuck up to my knees in cow manure. Oh, I desperately scrambled to get myself out. But that only made things worse. By the time all of the kids who are playing hide and seek converged onto my location, I was stuck up to my waist. The look of the local kids gave me was just soul crushing. I finally got myself out and I was 3/4 of the way covered in cow shit. Oh, bruh. Oh, that's gotta suck, dude. That's gotta absolutely suck. Thinking you found the best spot, like hiding spot ever, and then all of a sudden you realize it's a mountain of cow doo doo. Oh, that's crazy, bro. My man was he was in sinking cow doo doo. That's crazy. What's an NSFW experience that you are not very proud of? One night stand with a larger woman. She says, I am too big to be thrown around. So to show it wasn't a big deal, I throw her onto the bed. It breaks and injures the cat underneath. No. My man threw this fat girl onto to the bed and she broke the bed. Oh, bruh. See, that's why sometimes, man, you gotta just believe them. You gotta just believe them. Yeah, just believe. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, you're probably too big. You know what I mean? Oh, that's crazy, bro. What is an NSFW experience that you are not very proud of? I fingered a Dutch girl and she shit right down my arm. No. What? So were you like fingering the booty hole or something? Because there ain't no way you had your fingers up in the coochie and then she just doo-doos all over you. There's no way, bro. No way. Oh, man, imagine, thinking, yeah, just fingering this girl, you think you getting you some booty tonight, and then she just doo-doos all over your hand. Oh, man. Yeah, that's one way to kill a boner right there. Oh. All right, what is an NSFW experience that you are not very proud of? In the very early days of online dating, think Yahoo Personals around 2003, I started chatting with this girl that wasn't far from me, and she was very, very keen to get some that day. Oh, all right. Sheesh. She was the same age as me. We were both in our very early 20s at the time. I drove over to her house and something just feels off about her. I'm fairly average looking, but this girl is a smoke show. I'm talking like a 12 out of 10. Like Playmate of the Year material. No idea why she'd be dripping wet for a guy like me. Anyway, she's really all over me and we do the deed, but after she starts saying some really weird out-of-pocket stuff. Nothing in particularly scary, but enough stuff that just doesn't fit the context that starts setting off serious alarm bells in my head. As I'm leaving, her dad pulls up and asks what I'm doing in his house. Whoa, shit. Hold on. Let's see. Okay, at first I was super freaked the fuck out because I thought she might have lied about her age or something. So I tried to jet out, but the dad just looking sad and basically said, "No, man, you're not going to jail or anything. I'm just glad you're not hurt." Okay. Turns out the daughter is very, very schizophrenic and hyper sexual as a result. I chatted with him for a minute and he basically said that he has to keep her at home now because she's been removed from every facility she's been sent to because of her tendency to literally fuck anything with a dick. Okay. Every single facility orderlies other patients. He even told me one time she managed to seduce her therapist. He then said that her hypersexual phase also tended to morph into violence as she had an unhealthy admiration of the whole Black Widow complex.
Bruh.
You could have died. That's crazy. I've always said it. I'm not the type that, I'm not going to die for some coochie, but this is one of those things where it's like, it makes sense why she's super duper hot and wants to sleep, with that because, bruh, what the fuck, man? That's crazy. That's crazy. Like, literally, she could have been, like, riding on top of your dick, and you'd have been like, oh, yeah, this is amazing. And she could have just grabbed a knife and started just stabbing your chest, bro. You know what I mean? Just being like, oh, yeah. Like, bro. Imagine, man. Imagine. Woo. Damn, that's crazy, bro. That is crazy. Oh, man, I wonder what she's doing, like, today, Like, where are they at now? Because that's a crazy story, Is she still living with parents? Is she still living with her dad? Or is she just kind of going crazy? Has she, unalived somebody? You know what I mean? Like, is she in juvie jail or something? I don't know. I don't know. That is crazy, though. All right, what's an NSFW experience that you are not proud of? I was 18 and into kink. My girlfriend was obliging. I asked to be tied up and her to use a vibrator on me. I was living in my sister's basement waiting to go off to boot camp. There was this weird thing that happened in the 70s where they would make concrete pads to put your mattress on it. Basements, so the bed was always in the same position. Literally part of the foundation. It was a mattress on a concrete slab with about 18 inches of space between the wall. Jesus Christ. My man's out here willingly being in in like a cell. Anyways, we were playing. She puts a vibe somewhere I wasn't comfortable with, and I squirmed off the bed in between the concrete slab and the wall with my arms tied to my feet. Yo. She's 110 pounds and couldn't move me. Oh, shit. I was gagged, so I couldn't tell her what to do. She was panicking, so she just starts to get dressed. And I'm thinking, great, she is going to get a knife to cut the ropes. Nope. Comes back with my sister, very, very Christian husband. Oh, shit. Oh, man. I'm sitting there stuck, hog-tied, a vibrator in my ass. Oh no, raging hard on, mumbling with my girlfriend's underwear taped to my mouth. He lifts me out, unties the rope, leaves me, and never says a fucking word about it ever, bruh. Bro!
Bruh.
Oh, I guarantee you, your sister found out about that and never let you live it down. There's no way you could ever live something that humiliating down ever, bro. Oh, that sucks. That's crazy. My man had a vibrator in his booty. He had underwear gagged in his mouth. He was tied up. He was hog-tied. That's insane. Stuck between the concrete wall and the bed. Bruh. Oh, that's some insane shit. And then on top of that, she didn't know what to do. You know what I mean? She's like, I don't know what to do. I need a fucking adult in this bitch. Jesus. Oh, that's crazy. What is an NSFW experience that you are not very proud of? I was being given oral by my precious partner, and he was doing it while I was in doggy because he liked the view. I do that sometimes. That shit's nice. I ain't gonna lie. All went well until that one moment where he sort of delved in with his tongue while grabbing my cheeks with his hands and caught me by surprise, and I ended up farting. Oh no. Hold on. Okay, loudly in his face. For your information, I had some Coca-Cola before doing it, so I guess that must have been the reason. Soda makes you fart? I guess so. All right. I was so embarrassed that I ended up running into the washroom and hosing myself down with the bidet, but would not come out despite his assurances that it was all right. And surprisingly, he was not turned off and still had his heart on. Took me a while to get over it, but be comfortable with myself. That's funny. That is funny. I mean, look, you know, you know what I mean? Every once in a while, you know, it happens. Shit happens. It slipped out. I remember there was a time where, you know, I was doing the do. I was full pump, you know what I mean? And like the loudest, longest fart came out. It was bad. And it was one of those just like ripping a chainsaw fireworks, just... No, I was like, oh. And literally, like, she looked back and was like, did you shit yourself? And I was just like, no, that was all gas, baby. It was bad. It was bad to the point where I was like, oh, fuck, man. I don't need to be here right now. So embarrassed to finish the job up. But, you know, yeah. Ooh. You know what I mean? It happens, bro. It happens. What is an NSFW experience that you are not very proud of? I was sucking my ex's dick and he pissed in my mouth. What the fuck?
Hey, yo, what the fuck?
Oh, Jesus. No warning. At least now I know I don't have a piss kink. That's crazy. That is crazy. It would be even crazier if she was just like, it came out of nowhere and I liked it. That would be crazy. That would, I mean, you know, not knocking people's kinks, but you're nasty. You know what I mean? I'm not knocking the kink, but you're nasty. That's crazy, man. That is insanity to me, you know? God damn. All right. What is an NSFW experience that you are not very proud of? I'm not proud or happy or the fact that it wasn't until I was 24 I had my first orgasm. 8 years of having sex, and I thought it was that was just it. Pleasant surprise, though. I mean, I would... what? Because it's like, why would you not be proud of that? You know what I mean? Like you did it. You know what I mean? You did it. It's like, yeah. So why would you not be proud? I guess because you are 24, but I mean, I don't know. Ladies, let me know down in the comments. Is that normal? You know what I mean? You guys don't really get the big O until like later in life, because that's what I've always heard. So I always assumed that was kind of a normal thing. You know what I mean? It was just a normal, like, yeah, you know what I mean? You don't really get the big O until later on, or you know what I mean, if you were one of those like younger girls that dated the older dudes, you know what I mean, you're able to get an O that way or something. I don't know, but hey, it what it is. All right, what is a NSFW experience that you are not very proud of? I had to sleep outside of a church in a box to raise money for the homeless because my CCD class chose that shit over something normal like a day at a soup kitchen. Me and my friend are sharing a big fort by combining our boxes. It's getting late and I want to get some sleep. He agrees, so we settle into our corners. That's when the dude starts jacking it under his blanket. Aw, shit. And says out loud, sorry, I need to do this to sleep. No! I straight up yelled at him to go into the woods nearby or jack it in the church bathroom they left open for us. He picked the church bathroom, kind of fits the definition because it happened to me, and I'm not proud of it, but the story fits the prompt better if you consider the other person's perspective. This motherfucker, man, knowing you need to kind of, you know, stroke the chicken to go to sleep, you would think you would kind of do that, you know, beforehand. Like going to the bathroom real quick, choking the chicken real quick, then coming out and be like, I'm ready for bed. Not while we're laying together. Like, what the hell? You guys are laying next to each other and all you just hear is just like, what the fuck, bro? That's some insane shit, man. That is some absolute insane shit. What is an NSFW experience that you are not very proud of? I watched my friend couple fuck. We were in our 20s and we were staying in a hotel room together on a trip. I was single. Later in the night, we were all drunk and she said something like, I wish I had our own room so we could fuck. To boyfriend, not me. I was like, it's cool, I'll watch. I was joking, bruh. Okay. We get back to the room and she gets naked. Me and my friend were both like, and then she said something like, I'm hot, right? You said you wanted to watch. And so I watched. It was awkward. We were all still friends. They are married with kids. We don't talk about it. Okay. Wow. I'm surprised that the dude was cool with it. I would have thought he'd have just been like, no, bro, leave, you know, just stand in the hallway until I'm done. I ain't going to be that long, you know? So it's like, I'm surprised he was down with it, but maybe I guess because they were homies, he was down with it. I don't know. That's surprising, though. I ain't going to lie to you. That's kind of surprising, but hey, teach his own, you know what I mean? Teach his own, brother. Teach his own. It's kind of weird, you know, thinking about it, like he goes over to their house, you know, and he plays with their kids or whatever, and he's just like, yeah, I've seen your mom naked before. You know what I mean? Hey, I ain't gonna lie to you, I don't know how I would feel if I've seen my boy's girl naked before. Like, I don't know how I would feel about that. Maybe I'd be able to just kind of get over it and it wouldn't, be in my head anymore. But I don't know. It definitely would be different. It would be on my mind. Like, yeah. I know what them titties look like. You know what I mean? But hey. Alright, what is an NSFW experience that you are not very proud of? Hooked up in a tent with a family friend while both of our sisters were sleeping next to us. I was 20 years old, horny and drunk, but I never been so ashamed as the morning after when my sister said she heard us. Oh. I mean, you can't really be that quiet and, you know what I mean, especially in a tent. Like, come on now. And I'm sure they didn't want to say nothing because they're just like, oh, okay, girl, get it, you know? You know what I mean? It's like, you can't really say nothing. It's like, bro, you know what I mean? I'm surprised they didn't just, like, get up and leave the tent, but I guess then that would have just been more awkward. I don't know. Yeah, that's kind of tough. But, hey, you know what I mean? Do your thing, do your thing. All right, we're going to do one more and one in this thread. What is NSFW experience that you are not very proud of? My high school had practice rooms that the teachers were all too trusting to let people use without supervision. Even after school was over, one of the practice rooms had a lock that took a punch code. I used that practice room to have sex with my then boyfriend multiple times. We were never caught, and as a teacher now, it horrifies me. Whoa. That's kind of weird how, like, I don't know how people could do that, become teachers of the schools that they used to go to. I would think that would be mad weird. Like, the teachers that used to teach you are now your coworkers. That's a little weird. But I guarantee you she, like, knows that kids to this day are still fucking in that room. And that must be weird because and I don't think anybody else really knows because I don't think the teachers know, because if they did know, you guys would have gotten caught. You know what I mean? And so the fact that you're the only one that kind of knows that is a little weird, being honest with you. And it's just like, huh. Yeah. Oh, that's, yeah. Again, you know what I mean? That's one of those, like, you're going to have to find a way to just take it out of your mind. It's like, in the last situation where it's like, yeah, I know what my friend's, wife looks like naked. I've seen them titties before. It's one of those where it's like, you're going to have to try to, like, pull that information out of your head. Cause yeah, that's a little weird knowing that you could probably go in there and catch some students fucking, that's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. All right, that's gonna go ahead in that thread. If you guys have a crazy NSFW story that you're not very proud of and you're willing to share it, definitely put it down in the comments. All right, let's hop through announcements and get on to our first two chapters of King of Wrath. So patreon.com/My Asshole Podcast, an exclusive episode every single Friday, as well as being able to send in your scenario to be featured on the Tuesday. And for now, just the Tuesday episode. All right, just for now, it's Tuesday. So on Patreon, if you go on over there, you can sign up for a 7-day free trial if you want to get an experience of what Patreon has to offer and you want to do it completely free. I understand. I try to make Patreon as accessible as possible for you guys. So yes, we do have a free members version as well as the 7-day free trial for you guys. All right, get on in there, check out all the content for 7 days free. And then if you decide you want to pay the $3 a month, you totally can, and we can rock and roll. You get over 100 hours of content over there. Audio listeners, thank you for all of the support you guys have been showing. I appreciate that so much. You guys have been really showing out. You guys have been getting all the juicy content, you know what I mean? Well, I'm having trouble with YouTube, so some of you guys might even have been YouTube people and you just converted on over to Spotify. So, hi, hell, welcome. Keep rating us 5 stars as well as downloading all the episodes. Thank you guys so much for all that support. I appreciate that. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, as well as YouTube. Come check out all the streams. And yeah, that should be it. All right. So without further ado, let's go on into King of Wrath. I'm excited for this book, and I hope you guys are too. So let's get on into it.
Chapter 1. Vivian.
I can't believe he's here. He never comes to these things unless it's hosted by a friend.
Did you see he bumped Arno Reinhardt down a spot on the Forbes billionaires list? Poor Arnie nearly had a meltdown in the middle of Jean-Georges when he found out. The whispers started halfway through the Frederick Wildlife Trust's annual fundraiser for endangered animals. This year, the small sand-colored piping plover was the alleged star of the show. But none of the gala's 200 guests were discussing the bird's welfare over their Veuve Clicquot and caviar cannoli.
I heard his family's villa in Lake Como is undergoing a $100 million renovation. The place is centuries old, so I suppose it's time.
Each whisper grew in intensity, accompanied by furtive glances and the occasional dreamy sigh. I didn't turn to see who had the normally cool-as-ice members of Manhattan high society in such a tizzy. I didn't really care. I was too focused on a certain department store heiress as she tottered toward the swag table in sky-high heels. She quickly glanced around before swiping one of the personalized gift bags and dropping it in her purse. The minute she walked off, I spoke into my earpiece. "Shannon, code pink at the swag table. Find out whose bag she took and replace it." Tonight's bags each contained over $8,000 worth of swag. But it was easier to fold the cost into the event budget than confront the Denman's heiress. My assistant groaned over the line. "Tilly Denman again? Doesn't she have enough money to buy everything on that table and have millions left over?" "Yes, but it's not about the money for her. It's the adrenaline rush," I said. "Go. I'll order banana pudding from Magnolia Bakery tomorrow to make up for the strenuous task of replacing the gift bag. And for God's sake, find out where Penelope is. She's supposed to be manning the gift station." "Ha ha," Shannon said, obviously picking up on my sarcasm. "Fine. I'll check on the gift bags and Penelope, but I expect a big tub of bread pudding tomorrow." I laughed and shook my head as the line cut off. While she took care of the gift bag situation, I circled the room and kept an eye out for other fires, large or small. When I first went into business, it felt weird working events I would otherwise be invited to as a guest. But I'd gotten used to it over the years, and the income allowed me a small degree of independence from my parents. It wasn't part of my trust fund, nor was it my inheritance. It was money I'd earned, fair and square, as a luxury event planner in Manhattan. I loved the challenge of creating beautiful events from scratch, and wealthy people loved beautiful things. It was a win-win. I was double-checking the sound setup for the keynote speech later that night when Shannon rushed toward me. "Vivian, you didn't tell me he was here," she hissed. "Who?" "Dante Russo." All thoughts of swag bags and sound checks flew out of my head. I jerked my gaze to Shannon's, taking in her bright eyes and flushed cheeks. "Dante Russo?" My heart thudded for no apparent reason. "But he didn't RSVP yes." "Well, the rules of RSVPs don't apply to him." She practically vibrated with excitement. "I can't believe he showed up. People will be talking about this for weeks." The earlier whispers suddenly made sense. Dante Russo, the enigmatic CEO of the luxury goods conglomerate the Russo Group, rarely attended public events that weren't hosted by himself, one of his close friends, or one of his important business associates. The Frederick Wildlife Trust didn't fall under any of those categories. He was also one of the wealthiest, and therefore most watched men in New York. Shannon was right. People would be buzzing about his attendance for weeks, if not months. "Good," I said, trying to rein in my sudden runaway heartbeat. "Maybe it'll bring more awareness to the piping plover issue." She rolled her eyes. "Vivian, no one cares." She stopped, looked around, and lowered her voice. "No one actually cares about the piping plovers. I mean, I'm sad they're endangered, but let's be honest. The people are here for the scene only." Once again, She was right. Still, no matter their reason for attending, the guests were raising money for a good cause, and the events kept my business running. "The real topic of the night," Shannon said, "is how good Dante looks. I've never seen a man fill out a tuxedo so well." "You have a boyfriend, Shan." "So, we're allowed to appreciate other people's beauty?" "Yes, well, I think you've appreciated enough. We're here to work, not ogle the guests." I gently pushed her toward the dessert table. "Can you bring out more Viennese tartlets? We're running low." "Buzzkill," she grumbled. But she did as I said. I tried to refocus on the sound setup, but I couldn't resist scanning the room for the surprise guest of the night. My gaze skimmed past the DJ and the 3D piping plover display and rested on the crowd by the entrance. It was so thick I couldn't see beyond the outer edges, but I'd bet my entire bank account Dante was the center of their attention. My suspicions were confirmed when the crowd shifted briefly to reveal a glimpse of dark hair and broad shoulders. A rush of awareness ran the length of my spine. Dante and I belonged to tangential social circles, but we'd never officially met. From what I'd heard of his reputation, I was happy keeping it that way. Still, his presence was magnetic, and I felt the pull of it all the way across the room. An insistent buzz against my hip washed away the tingles coating my skin and drew my attention away from Dante's fan club. My stomach sank when I fished my personal cell out of my purse and saw who was calling. I shouldn't take personal calls in the middle of a work event, but one simply didn't ignore a summons from Francis Lau. I double-checked to make sure there were no emergencies requiring my immediate attention before I slipped into the nearest restroom. "Hello, Father." The formal greeting rolled off my tongue easily after almost 20 years of practice. I used to call him Dad, but after Lau Jules took off and we moved out of our cramped 2-bedroom into a Beacon Hill mansion, he insisted on being called Father instead. Apparently, it sounded more sophisticated and upper class.
Where are you?
His deep voice rumbled over the line.
Why is it so echoey?
"I'm at work. I snuck into a bathroom to take your call." I leaned my hip against the counter and felt compelled to add, "It's a fundraiser for the endangered piping plover." I smiled at his heavy sigh. My father had little patience for the obscure causes people used as an excuse to party, though he attended the events donated anyway. It was the proper thing to do.
Every day I learn about a new endangered animal.
He grumbled.
Your mother is on a fundraising committee for some fish or other, like we don't eat seafood every week.
My mother, formerly an esthetician, was now a professional socialite and charity committee member.
Since you're at work, I'll keep this short.
My father said.
We'd like you to join us for dinner on Friday night. We have important news.
Despite his wording, it wasn't a request. My smile faded. This Friday night? It was Tuesday, and I lived in New York while my parents lived in Boston. It was a last-minute request even by their standards.
Yes.
My father didn't elaborate.
Dinner is at 7 sharp. Don't be late.
He hung up. My phone stayed frozen on my ear for an extra beat before I removed it. It slipped against my clammy palm and almost clattered to the floor before I shoved it back into my purse. It was funny how one sentence could send me into an anxiety spiral. We have important news. Did something happen with the company? Was someone sick or dying? Were my parents selling their house and moving to New York like they'd once threatened to do? My mind raced through with 1,000 questions and possibilities. I didn't have an answer, but I knew one thing. An emergency summons to the Lau Manor never boded well. Chapter 2. Vivian. My parents' living room looked like something out of an Architectural Digest spread. Tufted settees sat at right angles to carved wood tables, Porcelain tea sets jostled for space next to priceless tchotchkes. Even the air smelled cold and impersonal, like generically expensive freshener. Some people had homes. My parents had a showpiece. "Your skin looks dull." My mother examined me with a critical eye. "Have you been keeping up with your monthly facials?" She sat across from me, her own skin glowing with pearlescent luminosity. "Yes, Mother." My cheeks ached from the forced politeness of my smile. I'd stepped foot in my childhood home 10 minutes ago, and I'd already been criticized for my hair, too messy, my nails, too long, and now my complexion. Just another night at the Lau Manor. "Good. Remember, you can't let yourself go," my mother said. "You're not married yet." I held back a sigh. Here we go again. Despite my thriving career in Manhattan, where the event planning market was more cutthroat than a designer sample sale, my parents were fixated on my lack of a boyfriend, and therefore lack of marital prospects. They tolerated my work because it was no longer fashionable for heiresses to do nothing, but they were salivating for a son-in-law, one who could increase their foothold in the circles of the old money elite. We were rich, but we would never be old money. Not in this generation. "I'm still young," I said patiently. "I have plenty of time to meet someone." I was only 28, but my parents acted like I would shrivel into the crypt keeper the second midnight struck on my 30th birthday. "You're almost 30, my mother countered. "You're not getting any younger, and you have to start thinking about marriage and kids. The longer you wait, the smaller the dating pool becomes." I am thinking about it. Thinking about the year of freedom I have left before I'm forced to marry a banker with a numeral after his last name. As for getting younger, that's what Botox and plastic surgery is for. If my sister were here, she would have laughed. Since she wasn't, my joke fell flatter than a poorly baked soufflé. My mother's lips thinned. Beside her, my father's thick, gray-tipped brows formed a stern V over the bridge of his nose. 60 years old, spry and fit, Francis Lau looked every inch the self-made CEO. He'd expanded Lau Jewels from a small family-run shop to a multinational behemoth over 3 decades. And a silent stare from him was enough to make me shrink back against the couch cushions.
Every time we bring up marriage, you make a joke.
His tone seeped with disapproval.
Marriage is not a joke, Vivian. It's an important matter for our family. Look at your sister. Thanks to her, we're now connected to the royal family of Eldora.
I bit my tongue so hard the taste of copper filled my mouth. My sister had married an Eldoran earl who was a second cousin twice removed from the queen. Our connection to the small European kingdom's royal family was a stretch, but in my father's eyes, an aristocratic title was an aristocratic title. "I know it's not a joke," I said, reaching for my tea. I needed something to do with my hands. "But it's also not something I need to think about right now. I'm dating, exploring my prospects. There are plenty of single men in New York. I just have to find the right one." I left out the caveat. There were plenty of single men in New York, but the pool of single, straight, non-douchey, non-flaky, non-disturbingly eccentric men was much smaller. My last date tried to rope me into a seance to contact his dead mother so she could meet me and give her approval. Needless to say, I never saw him again. But my parents didn't need to know that. As far as they were concerned, I was dating handsome trust fund scions left and right.
We've given you plenty of time to find a proper match these past 2 years.
My father sounded unimpressed by my spiel.
You haven't had a single serious boyfriend since your last relationship. It's clear you don't feel the same urgency we do, which is why I took matters into my own hands.
My tea froze halfway to my lips. Meaning? I thought the important news he'd alluded to had to do with my sister or the company. But what if... My blood iced. No, it can't be.
Meaning I've secured a suitable match for you.
My father dropped the bombshell with little to no warning or visible emotion.
It took quite a bit of work on my end, but the arrangement has been finalized.
I've secured a suitable match for you. The fragments from his declaration blasted through my chest and nearly cleaved my outward composure in half. My teacup clattered back onto its plate, earning me a frown from my mother. For once, I was too busy processing to worry about her disapproval. Arranged marriages were common practice in our world of big business and power plays, where marriages weren't love matches. They were alliances. My parents married my sister off for a title, and I'd known my turn was coming. I just hadn't expected it to come so soon. A bitter cocktail of shock, dread, and horror sluiced down my throat. I was expected to enter a lifetime contract after quite a bit of work on my father's end. Just what every woman wants to hear.
We've let you drag your feet too long, and this match will be enormously beneficial for us.
My father continued.
I'm sure you'll agree once you meet him at dinner.
The cocktail turned into poison and ate away at my insides. Dinner? As in, tonight's dinner? My voice sounded distant and strange, as if I was hearing it in a bad dream. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Being ambushed with news of an arranged marriage match was bad enough. Meeting my future fiancé with zero preparation was 100 times worse. No wonder my mother was being even more critical than normal. She was expecting her future son-in-law as a guest. My stomach lurched, and the possibility of expelling its contents all over my mother's prized Persian rug inched closer to reality. Everything was happening too fast. The dinner summons, the news of my engagement, the impending meeting. My mind whirled from trying to keep up.
He didn't confirm until today due to scheduling complications.
My father smoothed a hand over his shirt.
You'll have to meet him eventually. It doesn't matter whether it's tonight, a week, or a month from now.
Actually, it does matter. There's a difference between being mentally prepared to meet my fiancé and having him thrown in my face with no warning. My retort simmered on low, destined never to reach a full boil. Talking back was strictly verboten in the Lau household. I was beholden to its rules even as an adult, and disobedience was always met with swift punishment and sharp words. We want to move things along as quickly as possible. My mother jumped in. It takes time to plan a proper wedding, and your fiancé is, particular about the details. Funny how she was already calling him my fiancé when I hadn't met the man yet. Maud Devine named him one of the world's most eligible bachelors under 40 last year. Rich, handsome, powerful. Honestly, your father outdid himself. My mother patted my father's arm, her face glowing. I hadn't seen her this animated since she scored a seat on the Boston Society Wine Auctions Planning Committee last year. That's great. My smile wobbled from the effort of keeping itself intact. At least my match probably had all his teeth. I wouldn't have put it past my parents to marry me off to some decrepit billionaire on his deathbed. Money and status came first. Everything else came a distant second. I took a deep breath and willed my mind not to spiral down that particular path. Get it together, Viv. As upset as I was at my parents for springing this on me, I could freak out later, after I got through the evening. It wasn't like I could say no to the match. If I did, my parents would disown me. Plus, my future husband, my stomach lurched again, would be here any minute, and I couldn't make a scene. I wiped a palm against my thigh. My head felt dizzy, but I clung to the mask I always wore at home. Cool, calm, respectable. So, I swallowed my bile and forced a light tone. Does Mr. Perfect have a name, or is he known only by his net worth? I didn't remember everyone who'd been on mode de vie's list, but the people I did remember didn't inspire much confidence. If he...
Net worth by strangers. Name by select friends and family.
My spine stiffened at the deep, unexpected voice behind me. It was so close I could feel the rumble of words against my back. They slid over me like sun-warmed honey, rich and sensual, with a faint Italian accent that made every nerve ending tingle with pleasure. Heat slipped beneath my skin.
Ah, there you are.
My father rose, a strangely triumphant gleam in his eyes.
Thank you for coming at such short notice. How could I pass up the opportunity to meet your lovely daughter?
A hint of mockery tainted the word lovely, and instantly washed away any budding attraction I had to a voice, of all things. Ice doused the heat in my veins. So much for Mr. Perfect. I'd learned to trust my gut when it came to people, and my gut told me the owner of the voice was as thrilled about the dinner as I was. "Vivian, say hello to our guest." If my mother beamed any harder, her face would split in half. I half expected her to prop her cheek on her hand and sigh dreamily like a schoolgirl with a crush. I pushed the disturbing image out of my mind before I lifted my chin, stood, turned, and all the air whooshed out of my lungs. Thick black hair, olive skin, a slightly crooked nose that enhanced rather than detracted from his ruggedly masculine charm. My future husband was devastation poured into a suit. Not handsome by conventional means, but so powerful and compelling. His presence swallowed every molecule of oxygen in the room like a black hole consuming a newborn star. There were generically good-looking men, and there was him. And unlike his voice, his face was eminently recognizable. My heart sank beneath the weight of my shock. Impossible. There was no way he was my arranged fiancé. This had to be a joke. "Vivian!" My mother disguised her rebuke as my name. Right. Dinner. Fiancé. Meeting. I shook myself out of my stupor and summoned a strained but polite smile. "Vivian Lau. It's a pleasure to meet you." I held out my hand. A beat passed before he took it. Warm strength engulfed my palm and sent a jolt of electricity up my arm.
So I gathered from the multiple times your mother said your name.
The laziness of his drawl played off the observation as a joke. The hardness of his eyes told me it was anything but.
Dante Russo. The pleasure is all mine.
There was the mockery again. Subtle but cutting. Dante Russo. CEO of the Russo Group, Fortune 500 legend, and the man who'd created such a buzz at the Frederick Wildlife Trust Gala 3 nights ago. He wasn't just an eligible bachelor. He was the bachelor. The elusive billionaire every woman wanted and no one could get. He was 36 years old, famously married to his work, and up until now showed no intention of giving up his bachelor lifestyle. Why, then, would Dante Russo, of all people, agree to an arranged marriage?
I would introduce myself by my net worth,
he said.
But it would be impolite to categorize you as a stranger given the purpose of tonight's dinner.
His smile didn't contain an ounce of warmth. My cheeks heated at the reminder he'd overheard my joke. It hadn't been malicious, but discussing other people's money was considered uncouth, even though everyone secretly did it. "That's very considerate of you." My cool reply masked my embarrassment. "Don't worry, Mr. Russo. If I wanted to know your net worth, I could Google it. I'm sure the information is as readily available as the tales of your legendary charm." A glint sparked in his eyes, but he didn't take my bait. Instead, our gazes held for a charged moment before he slid his palm out of mine and swept a clinical, detached gaze over my body. My hand tingled with warmth, but everywhere else, coolness touched my skin like the indifference of a god faced with a mortal. I stiffened again beneath Dante's scrutiny, suddenly hyper-aware of my Cecilia Lau-approved tweed skirt suit, pearl studs, and low-heeled pumps. I'd even swapped out my favorite red lipstick in favor of the neutral color she preferred. This was my standard uniform for visiting my parents, and judging by the way Dante's lips thinned, he was less than impressed. A mix of unease and irritation twisted my stomach when those dark, unforgiving eyes found mine again. We'd exchanged only a handful of words, yet I already knew two things with gut certainty. One, Dante was going to be my fiancé. Two, we might kill each other before we ever made it to the altar.
Chapter 3. Dante. The wedding will take place in 6 months, Francis said. That's enough time to plan a proper celebration without dragging things out too long. However, public announcements should go out right away. He smiled, showing no hint of the snake coiled beneath his genial tone and expression. We'd adjourned to the dining room soon after my arrival, and the conversation had immediately veered into wedding planning territory. Distaste curled through me. Of course, he'd want the world to know his daughter was getting hitched to a Russo as soon as possible. Men like Francis would do anything to increase their social standing, including finding the balls to blackmail me in my office 2 weeks ago, right on the heels of my grandfather's death. Fury reignited in my chest. If I had my way, he wouldn't have left New York with his bones intact. Unfortunately, my hands were tied, metaphorically speaking, and until I found a way to untie them, I had to play nice. For the most part. No, it won't. I wrapped my fingers around the stem of my wine glass and imagined it was Francis's neck I was strangling instead. No one will believe I'm marrying someone with such short notice unless something was wrong. For example, your daughter is pregnant, and this is a shotgun wedding. The insinuation had everyone shifting in their seats while I kept my face blank and my voice bored. Restraint didn't come naturally to me. If I didn't like someone, I made damn sure they knew it. But extraordinary circumstances called for extraordinary measures. Francis's mouth thinned. Then what would you suggest? A year is a more reasonable time frame. Never was better, but sadly it wasn't an option. A year would do. It was short enough that Francis would agree to it, and long enough for me to find and destroy the blackmail evidence. Hopefully. Announcements should also go out later, I said. A month gives us time to craft a proper story, considering your daughter and I have never so much as been seen in public together before. We don't need a month to come up with a story, he snapped. Although arranged marriages were common in high society, the involved parties went to great lengths to conceal the true reason behind the nuptials. Acknowledging one's family joined with another simply for status reasons was considered vulgar. 2 weeks, he said. We'll announce the weekend Vivian moves into your house. My jaw tensed. Beside me, Vivian stiffened, clearly caught off guard by the revelation she'd have to move in before the wedding. It was one of Francis's stipulations for keeping his mouth shut, and I was already dreading it. I hated people invading my personal space. I'm sure your family would like the announcements to go out sooner rather than later as well. Francis continued, placing a soft emphasis on the word family. Don't you agree? I held his stare until he shifted and looked away. 2 weeks it is. The announcement date didn't matter. I'd simply wanted to make the planning as difficult for him as possible. What mattered was the wedding date. 1 year. 1 year to destroy the photos and break the engagement. It would be a huge scandal, but my reputation could take the hit. The Laus couldn't. For the first time that night, I smiled. Francis shifted again and cleared his throat. Excellent. We'll work together to draft. I'll draft it next. I ignored his glare and took another sip of Merlot. The conversation devolved into a mind-numbing rundown of guest invites, flowers, and a million other things I didn't give a shit about. Restless anger churned beneath my skin as I tuned Francis and his wife out. Instead of working on the Santeri deal or relaxing at the Valhalla Club, I was stuck entertaining their bullshit on a Friday night. Beside me, Vivian ate quietly, appearing lost in thought. After several minutes of strained silence, she finally spoke.
How was your flight?
Fine.
I appreciate you taking the time to fly in when we could have met in New York. I know you must be busy.
I cut a piece of veal and brought it to my mouth. Vivian's stare burned a hole in my cheek while I chewed leisurely.
I also heard the more zeros one has in their bank account, the fewer words they're capable of speaking.
Her deceptively pleasant voice could have sliced through butter.
You're proving the rumor correct.
I thought a society heiress like yourself would know better than to discuss money in polite company.
The key word is polite.
A ghost of a smile flickered over my mouth. Under normal circumstances, I might have liked Vivian. She was beautiful and surprisingly witty, with intelligent brown eyes and the type of naturally refined bone structure no amount of money could buy. But with her pearls and Chanel tweed, she looked like a carbon copy of her mother and every other uptight heiress who only cared about their social status. Plus, she was Francis's daughter. It wasn't her fault she was born to the bastard, but I didn't give a damn. No degree of beauty could erase that stain on her record. It's not polite to speak to a guest that way. I mocked softly. I reached for the salt. My sleeve grazed her arm, and she visibly tensed. What would your parents say? I'd already clocked Vivian's hang-ups less than an hour into our acquaintance. Perfectionism, non-confrontation, a desperate need for her parents' approval. Boring, boring, boring. Her eyes narrowed.
They'd say guests should adhere to social niceties as much as the host, including making an effort to hold a polite conversation.
Yeah? Do social niceties include dressing like you stepped out of a Fifth Avenue Stepford Wives factory? I flicked a gaze over her suit and pearls. I didn't give a shit if people like Cecilia wore such an outfit, but Vivian looked as out of place in the dowdy clothing as a diamond in a burlap sack. It pissed me off for no good reason.
No, but they certainly don't include ruining a nice dinner with discourtesy.
Vivian said coolly.
You should buy a nice set of manners to match your suit, Mr. Russo. As a luxury goods CEO, you know better than anyone how one ugly accessory can ruin an outfit.
Another smile, still faint but more concrete. Not so boring after all. However, the embers of my amusement hissed into a smoky death when her mother inserted herself into our conversation.
Dante, is it true all Russos get married at the family estate in Lake Como? I hear renovations will be finished by next summer before the wedding.
My smile vanished as my muscles tightened at the reminder. I turned away from Vivian to face Cecilia's eager expression. Yes, I said, my tone clipped. All Russo weddings have taken place at Villa Serafina since the 18th century. My many times great-grandfather had built the villa and named it after his wife. My family could trace its roots to Sicily, but they later migrated to Venice and built a fortune trading luxury textiles. By the time the Venice trading boom ended, they diversified enough to hold on to their riches, which they used to acquire property throughout Europe. Now, centuries later, my modern relatives were scattered across the world. New York, Rome, Switzerland, Paris. But Villa Serafina remained the most beloved of all the family estates. I would rather drown myself in the Mediterranean than tarnish it with a farce of a wedding. My anger came roaring back.
Wonderful!
Cecilia beamed.
Oh, I'm so thrilled you'll be part of the family soon. You and Vivian are a perfect match. You know she speaks 6 languages, plays the piano and violin, and...
Excuse me. I pushed my chair back, cutting Cecilia off mid-sentence. The legs scraped against the floor with a satisfyingly harsh screech. Nature calls. Silence thudded in the wake of my shocking rudeness. I didn't wait for anyone to speak before I walked out and left a fuming Francis, flustered Cecilia, and red-faced Vivian in the dining room. My anger remained a restless burn beneath my skin, but it cooled with each step farther away from them. In the past, I'd exacted retribution on those who crossed me immediately. Fuck revenge being a dish best served cold. My motto has always been strike fast, strike hard, and strike true. The world moved too quickly for me not to move along with it. I took care of the problem harshly enough to ensure there wouldn't be any future problems, and I moved on. Resolving the Lao situation, on the other hand, required patience. It was a virtue I wasn't familiar with, and it stretched tight over me like an ill-fitting suit. The echo of my footsteps faded as marble floors gave way to carpet. I'd visited enough mansions with similar layouts to guess where the restroom was, but I bypassed it in favor of the solid mahogany door at the end of the hall. A twist of the knob revealed an office styled after an English library. Wood paneling, overstuffed leather furniture, forest green accents. Francis's inner sanctum. At least it wasn't overly festooned with gold like the rest of the house. My eyes were starting to bleed from the eyesore. I left the door open and walked to the desk, my pace unhurried. If Francis had a problem with me snooping through his office, he was welcome to confront me. He wasn't stupid enough to leave the photos lying around behind an unlocked door when he knew I'd be here tonight. Even if the photos were here, he'd have backups stashed elsewhere. I settled into his chair, plucked a Cuban cigar from the box in his drawer, and lit it while I examined the room. My anger gave way to calculation. The dark computer screen tempted me, but I left the hacking to Christian, who was already tracking down digital copies of the photos. I moved on to a framed picture of Francis and his family in the Hamptons. Research told me they had a summer house in Bridgehampton, and I'd bet my newly acquired Renoir he kept at least one set of evidence there. Where else?
What are you doing?
The smoke from my cigar obscured Vivian's face, but her disapproval came through loud and clear. That was fast. I'd expected at least 5 more minutes before her parents forced her to come after me. Enjoying a smoke break? I took another lazy drag. I didn't touch cigarettes, but I indulged in the occasional cohiba. At least Francis had good taste in tobacco.
In my father's office?
Obviously. Dark satisfaction filled my chest when the smoke dissolved to reveal Vivian's frown. Finally, some visible emotion. I'd started to think I was stuck with a robot for the remainder of our ridiculous engagement. She crossed the room, plucked the cigar from my hand, and dropped it in the half-empty glass of water on the desk without taking her eyes off mine.
I understand you're probably used to doing whatever you want, but it's exceedingly rude to sneak off during a dinner party and smoke in your host's office.
Tension lined her elegant features.
Please rejoin us in the dining room. Your food is getting cold.
That's my problem, not yours. I leaned back. Why don't you join me for a break? I promise it'll be more enjoyable than your mother's hand-wringing over floral arrangements.
Based on our interactions so far, I doubt it.
She snapped. I watched, amused, as she took a deep breath and released it in one long, controlled exhale.
I don't understand why you're here,
Vivian said, her voice calmer.
You're clearly unhappy about the arrangement. You don't need the money or connection with my family, and you can have any woman you want.
Can I? I drawled. What if I want you? Her fingers curled into loose fists.
You don't.
You give yourself too little credit. I rose and circled the desk until I stood close enough to see the pulse fluttering in her neck. How much faster would it beat if I wrapped her hair around my fist and pulled her head back? if I kissed her until her mouth bruised and hiked up her skirt until she begged me to fuck her. Heat ran to my groin. I wasn't interested in actually fucking her, but she was so prim and proper she begged for corruption. The silence was deafening as I lifted my hand and grazed my thumb over her bottom lip. Vivian's breathing shallowed, but she didn't move away. She stared at me, eyes full of defiance as I took my time exploring the lush curve of her mouth. It was full, soft, and disturbingly tempting compared to the stiff formality of the rest of her appearance. "You're a beautiful woman," I said lazily. "Perhaps I saw you at an event and was so enamored I asked your father for your hand in marriage."
Somehow I doubt that's what happened.
Her breath drifted over my skin.
What kind of deal did you make with my father?
The reminder of the deal killed the sensuality of the moment as quickly as it came. My thumb paused on the center of her bottom lip before I dropped my hand with a silent curse. My skin tingled with heat from the memory of her softness. I hated Francis for the blackmail, but I loathed Vivian for being his pawn. So what the fuck was I doing, toying with her in his office? You should ask your dear father that question. My smile cut across my face, cruel and devoid of humor as I regathered my composure. The details don't matter. Just know that if I had any other choice, I damn well wouldn't be getting married. But business is business, and you... I shrugged. You're simply part of the deal. Vivian didn't know about her father's manipulation. Francis had warned me not to tell her, not that I would have anyway. The fewer people who knew about the blackmail, the better. He'd uncovered one of my few weak spots, and I'd be damned if I broadcast it to the world. Vivian's eyes glowed with anger.
You're an asshole.
Yes, I am. Better get used to it, Mia cara, because I'm also your future husband. Now, if you'll excuse me... I straightened my jacket with deliberate care. I have to return to dinner. As you said earlier, my food's getting cold. I brushed past her, reveling in the delicious taste of her indignation. One day, she'd get her unspoken wish and wake up to a broken engagement. Until then, I'd bide my time and play along because Francis's ultimatum had been clear. Marry Vivian, or my brother dies.
All right. Well, that has been the first 3 chapters. We were only going to do 2, but I decided, you know what, the first 2 chapters were pretty short, so let's go ahead and do 3. So I decided to do 3. Hope you guys enjoyed that introduction to King of Wrath. I'm excited to get through with this book because I ain't gonna lie to you, just those 3 books, or just the 3 chapters, I'm like, I kind of like the protagonist guy. I ain't gonna lie to you. Yeah, he's a little bit of an asshole, but I'm just like, dude seems like he's kind of an asshole in the right ways. I don't know. I could be wrong. I'm excited to see how the characters develop and so on and so forth. But love you guys all. I will see you on Friday if you're on Patreon, or on any streams over the weekend, or next week on Tuesday for another episode. Love you guys all. I'll see you later, and peace.